At SixSox Minds, we believe that each one of us has the capability to be a winner. We welcome you all to this platform where learning is a cyclic process that never ends. We're here to make the process simple, creative, and fun. Our goal is to serve the community, share experiences, learn, and reach beyond. The views, information, and opinions expressed in our talk are those of the speaker. They do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the speaker's employer, any other organization, other groups, or individuals. Today, we bring to you our speaker for the day, who believes that strong human connections can be made by leveraging one's emotions positively. With over 20 years of experience in financial services and over 16 years in learning and development, Hariharan Iyer trained in 26 countries, physically and virtually, over the years to better understand the nuances involved in face-to-face and virtual interfaces. He believes that the use of technology is the key to a successful learning experience. With delivering impactful behavioral, soft skills, and risk programs, amassing numerous certifications, Hariharan has been acknowledged as one among the most effective facilitators in the learning and development arena, where he continues to positively impact people and organizations. At SixSox Minds, we know him as our most eligible bachelor with an infectious smile and someone who cannot cook to save his life. Ladies and gentlemen, use the virtual icon to put your hands together to welcome Hariharan Iyer.
Ladies and gentlemen, wish you all a good afternoon. In fact, it gives me immense pleasure to even begin before talking. Thank you very much, Deepa, for that brilliant introduction and mentioning that I am an eligible bachelor, and above all, about my infectious smile. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you must be wondering, what is leveraging emotional connect mean? So if I'm able to put it in one sentence, it is how one deals with emotions in their lives and is able to connect across the whole world that they are dealing with. In fact, I must tell you that this is a very small aspect of a very large subject known as emotional intelligence. I call that adaptive learning. Now, why do I call it adaptive learning? And effective learning is because you need to adapt and you need to affect people around, because you affect people positively or negatively. Now, keeping that in mind, I must take you into what is our core subject today. Our core subject today is a very small aspect, again, of leveraging emotional connect, which is positive mental attitude. Positive mental attitude. What does this mean? Shreya, if you can give me the next slide. Very simple. Positive mental attitude means how does one function in the most trying times, taking the right decisions, taking the right call, behaving in that right manner. If you look in your screens, you will see a pawn shadowing a king. How does one feeling low actually become so big? All of that is explained in positive mental attitude. And therefore, I call this session as positive mental attitude. Next. So if somebody was to describe to me, how does one be positive? So this is a question that I get from a lot of people. I am sure many of you in this audience who are watching would have gone through tough times. And all of us would have heard this sentence also from many people. Just stay positive. Just remain positive. Just be positive. The question is, how does one stay positive? Ladies and gentlemen, this is the question I'm going to leave you with, and I'll address it right at the end. Now, through this session, I will take you through certain nuances, and you might want to grab a pen and a paper to note down so that you can make notes during the program and ask your questions. So, before we begin of understanding positive mental attitude, next, let me ask you a very simple question. What do we see here? In fact, I remember T.P. Anand in his first session mentioning that positive people will see a half glass full, and the not so positive people will see that half glass empty. Now, if you're seeing it half full, me or many others might see it half empty. And if you all are seeing it half empty, some of us will see it as half full, or maybe even I'm seeing it as half full. The question that comes up here is, why do different people see different things when the image is the same? Isn't it ironical? It's the same thing we are seeing, but we've got different opinions. Have you ever wondered what makes us think differently while seeing the same image, or looking at something which is the same? Now that's what I call next as half full or half empty. So let me tell you, why does somebody feel differently from the others? Now, if you look at how does the human brain function? Now, we are all, as I say, a manifestation of our behavior and our beliefs. How does this get formed? This is how it gets formed. You have a certain occasion that comes in, a possible incident. Also, in communication words, it's known as stimulus. When the stimulus comes through, usually what happens, this stimulus is felt by the five senses. Either you touch it and see it, you touch it, you see it, you taste it, you smell it, or you hear it. Next. Once this happens, it gets into the brain, and the brain, next, processes this information. Once this information is processed, it starts to form a belief. It starts to form a set of, what do you call it, as fundamentals. It starts to form something known as what it believes is the truth. Once this is done, going forward, next, any incident of a similar type, the mind would behave in a similar manner. Therefore, an experience that I have had may not be the same as somebody else's experience, and therefore, we see the same picture or perceive the same incident differently. Now, where is all this happening? All of this is happening in that one place, which is said to be next, this organ of the body, this one, the brain. In fact, the brain is one of the most researched, intriguing, and interesting aspects of the entire human body. It is believed that we know more about the moon's surface as compared to the brain, because every day there is something new that gets discovered about our brain. Therefore, I call this next the central processing unit, because this is where all those reactions come out from. This is where all those experiences get recorded, and this is where that fundamental belief system gets formed. It gets crystallized there. It gets solidified there. And that's from where our actions, the way we behave, or the way we talk, starts to emerge. That means if we have to be positive, and that positive mental attitude has to be achieved, we have to do something with this, the central processing unit, or the brain, as we call it. So how do we work this out? So let me tell you a short story. Next. In fact, this is in the early 1900s. The belief was that a man cannot run 1 mile under 4 minutes. The thought was that if somebody ran that fast, the heart would jump out of the rib cage. And let me tell you what it means, running a mile under 4 minutes. It means running at about 24 kilometers, a little more than 24 kilometers per hour. And if I have to break it down and tell you how it feels, it is like running 22 feet in a second. Now this was believed to be unachievable. The closest somebody reached was in 1945, a Swedish runner by name Grander Hag. He had clocked 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Now, people were trying across the globe. And this is where I would like to bring in this character by name Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister was a British long-distance runner. He wanted to break that 4-mile record, or the 1-mile record under 4 minutes. His very close friend was John Landy, and John Landy was another long-distance runner from Australia. And both of them were trying hard to break this record. Now, how did they go about breaking the record? Let me tell you today, about 1,400 people have broken that record. The fastest time as on today registered is with a Moroccan in 1999 when he clocked 3 minutes and 40 seconds. How did all this happen? Now, Roger Bannister got into something known as understanding his limitations. Next. So what is a limitation? Limitation is anything that stops you from doing something. And what did he do in his limitations? The first thing that he did was understood his personal SWOT. Next. So what is a SWOT? Next. A SWOT is nothing but strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So if you look at a personal strength, a personal SWOT, it will talk about your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So when Roger Bannister worked out his SWOT, he found that the biggest strength he had was he could run long distances and could run it at a solid pace, at a regular pace, neither going fast nor going slow, which is required by long distance runners. The biggest weakness he found was about 500 yards before the closing or the finish line, he would actually find it hard to accelerate. His biggest opportunity were the races that were coming up. And his biggest threat was his best friend, John Landy, because both of them were trying to get there. So what did Roger Bannister do? Next, Roger Bannister got onto the drawing board and with the help of all the existing mechanisms, researched how to run faster and longer. I'm talking of 1950s, so you can imagine how rudimentary the entire equipment would have been. Then, once he had a research done, so what did he do? So for example, if he had to run a long distance, he had to ensure that his fitness levels were much better. If he has to cruise in the last 500 yards, he had to ensure that his stamina was much better. So all of this came out when he looked at his resources. Now, once you have looked at your resources, what is available at your disposal, keeping your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in mind and your goal, you left out one thing which is very, very critical. And in Roger Bannister's case, this was the point which would have led him to defeat or to victory. This was nothing but next, the other factors. When I say other factors, I would say environmental conditions for Roger Bannister. Now, I don't know if you know, but if you run very fast in a cold climate, you get tired quickly. If it's too hot, you get tired quickly. If it's too windy, you will have resistance. You get tired quickly. If it's too humid, then too, you can get tired quickly. So Roger Bannister did not know on which day he's going to run. And even if he ran on a particular day, he did not know how the climate is going to behave. Therefore, he knew what are the things that he had on his side and what are the things he does not have on his side. So very simple, he actually had a simple sheet which told him what he should do if he has to hit the 1 mile mark in under 4 minutes. What did he do next, do you think? He did one thing. I call that nothing but next, the bedrock. This is the most important aspect while looking at achieving your target and ensuring that you're continuously positive. The bedrock is nothing but those neurons that are getting connected to different places in your brain which help you to build a skill. Now, let me give you an example. How many of us have tried to learn a skill and found it hard the first time? When you repeatedly do it, you notice that you become good at it. Do you know how that happens? That's because neurons connect to one another. When the bridge is formed the first time, you start to struggle. As you do something repeatedly, it becomes a constant process and the bridge is strong. Now, what did Roger Bannister do? He explored next. He explored hard as to what are the things that he must do, especially in terms of improving stamina. What should he do in terms of ensuring that he is able to fight the weather conditions? That would be the next point. Next, that is learn. Learn how to become fitter, build on stamina, and more importantly, take on the weather conditions. And last, not the least, he made it his passion. Now, here is where I must give you a point of caution. Next, there is a very thin line between passion and obsession. Usually people ask me, how do you define? I ask them, when your heart sings, that is passion. But when your heart is in a grudge, that is obsession. So when you enjoy doing something, it automatically is passion. So Roger Bannister made it passion, then obsession, by practicing and running different times of the day. Early morning when it is cold, during the day when it is a little warm, during rainy conditions, during stormy conditions, during humid conditions. Next, this is where Roger Bannister came close to the truth. It was the 6th of May, 1954. And the time, 6 p.m., when the running gun was fired. I will leave you with I'll tell you the result in a while from now, because I will get into some things that Roger Bannister did just before the race. I call this shattering the glass ceiling. Many of us come to situations wherein you feel you can't go higher. You start to hit that wall. You're not able to just go higher. That is the glass ceiling. So how do you ensure that you break that glass ceiling and go to the next level? This is how we do it. Next, it's very simple. First things first, when you are hitting your glass ceiling, you need to ensure that you review what is it that you want to achieve. Next, you review your target against what have you learned. Because this is the difference. And when you start putting your practice in place, that is the bridge between what you want to achieve and what you have at hand. So the goal against your actions and strengths. So you'll not get there until you review. And Roger Bannister used to have a review with his coach every time he ran that day. Next, he looked at all the alternatives that he can keep in mind. What are the alternatives? If he ran fast through the race, what are the chances that he will get tired in the end? Or should he run constantly through the race? Or is it that he should run slowly in the beginning and then pick up in the end so that he wins? Last not the least, contingencies. The question, what if? What if he cannot make it? And the answer for him was obviously the next race. Life doesn't end there. So as I told you, 6 p.m. on 6th of May, 1954, Roger Bannister is waiting to run his race. The starting gun is fired. And in the next 3 minutes, Roger Bannister dashes the myth that a mile cannot be run under 4 minutes. He finished the race in 3 minutes, 59 seconds, and 40 milliseconds. How do you think Roger Bannister did this? It is only because of its positive mental attitude. Next. The very simple thing that we need to remember is, this is what you see from the eyes of an eagle. If you want to be soaring at that height, above the clouds, viewing what is there down, you need to achieve a certain height and altitude. As Nick Vujicic rightly put it in one of his speeches, it is not your aptitude, but it is your attitude that determines your altitude. It is not your aptitude, but your attitude that determines your altitude. Next. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, being positive is a habit. And this word is a very funny word. Let me tell you why. Next, if you take off the H, you still have a bit. You take off the A, you still have a bit. You take off the B, you still have it. And you take off the I, you still have the T. If you're wondering what that T is, it is actually teeing off in golf. You see that white thing there? That's the T. Now, they say, get it right from the T. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, positive mental attitude is a habit. And we need to make it a regular habit to be positive. Because, ladies and gentlemen, next, it is something that we have to make a part of our DNA. A regular thing. Because, next, positive thinking, positive attitude. Thing next, leads to nothing but positive outcomes. Thank you so much. Over to you, Deepa.